There is a fruit that stores more water than almost any other plant on Earth. It contains 5 electrolytes: potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and phosphorus, all occurring naturally, with no laboratory required and no factory involved. It carries a class of antioxidant pigments so rare that scientists have only found them in 2 foods on the entire planet. Researchers at the University of Palermo published findings in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, showing these pigments actively reduce oxidative stress in human blood at levels comparable to clinical interventions. A 2-week human study published in Food and Nutrition Research confirmed that consuming this fruit improved the antioxidant profile of healthy adults, measurable in their skin, measurable in their blood. It grows in deserts. It needs almost no water to survive. It has been feeding and hydrating human civilizations for 10,000 years. It has 95% water content by weight. Its natural sugar content sits between 4 and 9 grams per 8-ounce serving. It does not contain artificial dyes. It does not contain synthetic flavoring agents. It does not contain modified food starch. A 28-ounce bottle of the sports drink you were told to reach for after a workout contains 48 grams of added sugar. That is the number confirmed in a class action lawsuit filed against its manufacturer, the same lawsuit that argued its claim of being more hydrating than water has been, in their own words, proven false. This cactus fruit was the official hydration source of desert warriors, long-distance traders, and entire indigenous civilizations for thousands of years before Gatorade was invented in a University of Florida laboratory in 1965. It still grows wild across the American Southwest. It still grows in Mexico. It still grows in parts of Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. You probably drove past one without knowing what it was. It is the prickly pear, the fruit of the Opuntia cactus. And by the end of this video you will understand exactly why no one in the sports drink industry wants you to know its name. If this channel has been teaching you what the food system does not, hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a community of people who grow their own answers, and this one runs deep. The story of the prickly pear does not begin in a laboratory. It does not begin with a patent application or a marketing deck. It begins somewhere between 8,000 and 7,500 years before the Common Era, at the very moment humans were first learning to farm. Archaeological and botanical evidence, documented by researchers working with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, shows that indigenous Mexicans were cultivating the Opuntia cactus at the dawn of agriculture itself. This was not a wild plant they occasionally stumbled across. This was a crop deliberately selected, deliberately planted, deliberately managed before the wheel, before iron tools, before written language. The cactus is native only to the Americas. It grew nowhere else on Earth until European colonizers carried it across the Atlantic in the 1500s. But in its homeland, it had already accumulated thousands of years of use. Every part of the plant was utilized. The flat green pads called nopals were eaten fresh, boiled, or dried. The bright red and pink fruit, called tuna in Spanish and nixtli in the Nahuatl language of the Aztecs, was consumed raw, fermented into beverages, dried for winter storage, and pressed for its juice. The seeds were ground into a flour rich in essential fatty acids. The spines were used as needles. The juice was used as adhesive to bind construction materials on Aztec temples. But above all other uses, the prickly pear was water. In an environment where surface water could disappear for months at a time, this plant retained it. The fruit is 95% water by weight. The pads hold even more. When there was no river, when there was no rain, the Opuntia cactus was the living water storage system that kept people alive. Evidence places the cultivation of the nopal cactus as early as 8,000 years before the Common Era, a timeframe that researchers have noted puts it at the very beginning of human agriculture. This positions the prickly pear not as a peripheral crop, but as one of the foundational cultivated plants in human history. The Aztec relationship with this fruit went beyond nutrition. It entered their cosmology. Their origin myth, recorded in 1553 in the Codex Mendoza, describes their ancestors wandering for generations in search of a promised land. The sign they were told to watch for: an eagle perched upon a prickly pear cactus, surrounded by the feathers and bones of its prey. When they found that sign in the Valley of Mexico, they built their capital city there, Tenochtitlan, which translates directly as the place of the prickly pear cactus. That capital is now the center of Mexico City, one of the largest cities on Earth. The eagle on the cactus still appears on the Mexican national flag today. This is not folklore dressing up a useful plant. This is a civilization telling you in the clearest possible terms that this fruit was sacred enough to name a nation after it. If you have been following this channel, you know that when an ancient civilization embeds a plant into its founding mythology, that plant earned it. Subscribe if you are just joining us, because the history we cover here is not in the textbooks they gave you in school. Native American communities across the Southwest valued the prickly pear for both its medicinal and culinary applications long before European settlers arrived. Tribes including the Apache, Comanche, and Navajo ate the fruit fresh, dried it for later use, or fermented it into beverages. Early Spanish explorer Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, who crossed the American Southwest in the 1530s, documented indigenous communities gathering and celebrating the prickly pear harvest, describing it as the most important food event of the year for the peoples he encountered. Multiple civilizations, multiple continents, multiple independent discoveries of the same fruit. The ancient Mexicans built a capital over it. Indigenous communities of the North American desert survived on it. Mediterranean cultures adopted it the moment Europeans brought it across the ocean. The Sicilian island adopted it so completely that today it appears on regional coats of arms. When that many cultures with no contact with each other independently recognize a plant as essential, that is not coincidence, that is chemistry. And modern science is finally catching up to what 10,000 years of human experience already knew. Think of the prickly pear as the sports drink that never needed a boardroom, a chemist, or a federal trademark to earn its reputation. It built that reputation one desert generation at a time. By the time European botanists first documented the Opuntia cactus in the 1500s, it was already the dominant hydration and nutrition source across a territory spanning from what is now southern Canada down through the entirety of Mexico and into South America. It was not a specialty crop. It was not a medicinal curiosity. It was the backbone of desert food systems. Within decades of European contact, the prickly pear had been carried across the Atlantic and was flourishing in the Mediterranean. By the 1700s, it had naturalized so thoroughly in parts of Italy, Spain, North Africa, and the Middle East that local populations would later assume it had always been native there. In the American Southwest, the prickly pear harvest was not a quiet individual act. Native American communities held festivals to celebrate it. Early explorers documented these gatherings, describing them as expressions of gratitude for nature's abundance. The harvest was a communal event precisely because the fruit was communally critical. It was the water source, the food source, the medicine source, and the trade commodity all at once. Historical records from the 16th century, including the work of the Franciscan friar Bernardino de Sahagun, documented that Native Americans who consumed the Opuntia regularly were observed to be healthy and strong, with notable vitality. The fruit contains 5 electrolytes occurring naturally in a single source: potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and phosphorus. These minerals serve as electrolytes in the human body, needed for bone, heart, nerve, and muscle health. It also contains taurine, an amino acid that works with electrolytes to repair and build muscle after exertion. No synthetic additive, no artificial delivery system. The plant simply evolved to hold everything a desert-dwelling human body needed to stay functional under extreme heat and physical strain. The fruit also contains betalain's rare antioxidant pigments that give prickly pear its vibrant magenta color, and are found in very few other foods on Earth, with beets being the only other common source. These are not trace amounts. Research published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences demonstrated that betalains from cactus pear actively protect the vascular endothelium, the lining of blood vessels, from oxidative damage. A 2-week controlled human study confirmed that people consuming cactus pear fruit showed measurably improved antioxidant status, with the improvement visible in skin tissue through laser spectroscopy measurements. Gatorade does not contain betalains. Gatorade contains yellow 5-a-petroleum-derived synthetic dye. It contains modified food starch. It contains glycerol ester of rosin. A 28-ounce bottle contains 48 grams of added sugar, greatly in excess of daily sugar limits recommended by the American Heart Association. The prickly pear was the real formula. It was working. It was feeding armies, sustaining traders crossing the Sonoran Desert, keeping farmers alive through drought. And then, slowly and deliberately, it was pushed out of the American diet, not because it failed, but because something cheaper, something more patentable, something that could be produced in a factory and sold back to you at a premium arrived to replace it. Hit subscribe, because the next chapter is where the story gets uncomfortable. 1965, a kidney specialist named Dr. Robert Cade at the University of Florida was approached by a football coach who wanted to understand why his players were wilting in the Florida heat. Cade and his team collected fluid samples, ran tests, and concluded that the players needed water, salt, and sugar delivered in a precise ratio for rapid absorption. The resulting drink, containing water, sodium, sugar, potassium, and phosphate, was named Gatorade. It helped the Florida Gators win the 1967 Orange Bowl. From there, it became commercialized for everyone. The science behind it was not wrong. Electrolytes and carbohydrates do accelerate rehydration under the right conditions. But what began as a functional medical solution was handed to a corporation, and the corporation had different priorities than Dr. Cade did. The original 1965 formula contained water, sodium chloride, potassium chloride, sugar, a phosphate component, and lemon juice. By the time it reached mainstream supermarket shelves at industrial scale, It contains synthetic dyes, artificial flavoring agents, modified food starch, and a sugar load that researchers would later flag as clinically concerning. Today, the global sports drink market is valued at over $38 billion. Gatorade, owned by PepsiCo, commands the largest share. The industry does not grow by pointing consumers toward fruits that grow wild on desert hillsides. It grows by manufacturing a product, building a distribution chain, controlling shelf placement, and signing sponsorship deals with every major professional sports league on Earth. You cannot patent a prickly pear. You cannot trademark a cactus. You cannot build a $38 billion market on something that grows without fertilizer, without irrigation, without a factory, and without a single purchase required. What you can do is spend decades making sure that a fruit with 10,000 years of hydration history never appears in the conversation when someone asks what to drink after a workout. The prickly pear did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared from the American mainstream because the mainstream was never designed to serve the people who use it. It was designed to sell them something instead. Subscribe, because every video on this channel is a piece of that larger picture, and this community is not going back. While grocery store shelves filled with neon-colored bottles, the prickly pear never actually went anywhere. In Mexico, it never left. Nopal cactus has remained a staple in traditional diets, particularly in Mexico and the American Southwest, for centuries. In Mexican pharmacies, nopal powder is stocked as a basic health staple, not in the supplement aisle, not behind a counter, but alongside everyday essentials, because the culture never stopped understanding what the plant does. Indigenous communities across Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas continued harvesting wild prickly pear through the 20th century, drying the fruit, pressing the juice, fermenting it into traditional beverages the same way their ancestors had for hundreds of generations. They did not require a university study to tell them it worked. They had the evidence in their own family histories. In the Mediterranean, Sicilian communities never abandoned the fruit that had naturalized on their island over 3 centuries. It was Sicilian cultivars of prickly pear that provided much of the research material for the landmark studies on beta-lactam antioxidants published in peer-reviewed journals over the past 2 decades, the same research that is now attracting serious attention from nutritional scientists worldwide. These communities shared a common trait. They never accepted the premise that a manufactured product was superior to what their land already provided. They did not need advertising to tell them what to drink. They had grandmothers and ancestors, and fields full of cacti that had never once required a patent. And now quietly the rest of the world is beginning to remember. Cactus water products are emerging in the market, with some containing half the calories and sugar of leading coconut water brands, while still delivering electrolytes, especially potassium and magnesium, along with antioxidants. Researchers are publishing. Nutritionists are recommending. The conversation is shifting, but you do not need to wait for a bottled product. The fruit is real, the plant grows, and if you have the right climate, you can grow it yourself for free forever. If you are already subscribed to this channel, you already know that is the whole point. If you're watching for the first time, subscribe now. This is the community that goes all the way back to the source. Here is what you actually need to know. Prickly pear Opuntia ficus indica is one of the lowest maintenance food plants you can grow in a warm climate. It requires no irrigation once established. It grows in poor rocky soil. It requires no fertilizer. It spreads from a single pad cutting pressed into the ground. In the American Southwest, the Mediterranean, parts of Africa, and across Latin America, it grows wild and free for the taking. The fruit rips in late summer through early fall in the northern hemisphere. You will recognize it by its deep red and magenta color on the pads of the cactus. Use tongs and thick gloves. The glochids, the tiny hair-like spines, are the main hazard, and they are invisible until they are already in your skin. To make the hydration drink that kept civilizations alive, harvest the ripe tunas, the red fruits, using tongs. Burn or scrub off the glochids using an open flame or a rough cloth. Cut the fruit in half and scoop out the flesh, or press the whole fruit through a strainer. The juice runs a deep magenta red. Add 2 to 4 teaspoons of concentrated prickly pear juice to 16 ounces of clean water. That is your electrolyte drink. No artificial dyes, no modified food starch. No 48 grams of added sugar. Just 5 naturally occurring electrolytes, beta-lactam antioxidants, and water, the same combination that kept desert peoples alive for 10,000 years. A packet of prickly pear cactus pads called nopals is available in most Latin American grocery stores and in the international section of many mainstream supermarkets. The grocery store variety is a spineless cultivar originally developed by the famous plant breeder Luther Burbank. Clean, easy to handle, and completely edible raw or cooked. A single established Opuntia cactus can produce hundreds of fruits per season. You plant it once, it grows without asking anything from you. And every summer for the rest of your life, it gives you back exactly what you need. That is what a $38 billion industry decided you should never find out. 10,000 years ago, someone in the high desert of central Mexico looked at a cactus covered in spines and decided it was worth the difficulty. They ate the fruit, they pressed the juice. They survived the drought, the heat, the long walk across terrain that should have killed them. They passed the knowledge to their children, and their children passed it forward and forward and forward all the way to the Aztec priests who embedded it in their founding mythology, to the Apache and Comanche and Navajo communities who harvested it in the American Southwest, to the Sicilian farmers who made it part of the Mediterranean landscape, to the researchers in Palermo, and at institutions across Europe and North America, who are now publishing what ancient peoples proved across millennia. The knowledge survived, the plant survived. The fruit is still growing on hillsides and desert slopes across the American Southwest right now, free, unclaimed, ancient, and waiting. What changed is not the plant. What changed is who controls the conversation about what you drink. The lawsuit filed against the most dominant sports drink brand in the world argued that its claim of being more hydrating than water has been proven false. The same company collecting tens of billions of dollars every year on the promise of optimal hydration. Meanwhile, the fruit that actually delivers 5 electrolytes, a rare class of anti-inflammatory antioxidants, and a 95% water content in a form that requires no factory, no chemical additive, and no purchase, grows wild and free on land that belongs to everyone. The seeds are still here. The knowledge is still here. And this channel exists for one reason: to make sure it reaches you before the system decides you have no business knowing it. If this video opened something for you, share it with someone who still reaches for the neon bottle. Drop a comment below. Have you ever eaten or grown prickly pear? What did you know about it before today? And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now. Every week on this channel, we pull another piece of this story back into the light. The plants our ancestors chose, they chose them for a reason. We are just here to remember why.